I'm Inara Scott, and I'm the editor of Sustainable Capitalism. And I'm here with Dr. Mark Kaswan. And Mark wrote a chapter for the book entitled Whose Capitalism, or Whose Capital is Cooperative Ownership, a More Sustainable Model for Capitalism? And so I'm delighted to have an opportunity to talk to Mark today. And Mark, why don't you just start off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your chapter?
Sure. So, Mark Kaswan, and I'm a professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. So, right on the border with Mexico, down at the very southern tip of Texas. And really, I wanted to write this chapter because I think it's important, particularly in these times, for us to be thinking about the cooperative movement, to be giving it more attention, because I think it often gets overlooked in a lot of the debates around the economy and how the economy works. Cooperatives have been around for a very long time. In fact, one of the first cooperatives that we know of in modern times was founded by Benjamin Franklin in Philadelphia in 1756. Although the cooperative movement didn't really get started, didn't really establish sort of its ideological and practical foundations until the 1820s, and then really kind of got going in the 1840s in England, quickly got transferred over to the United States, and has been around and had a significant impact on the economies, not just of England, the United States, but all around the world. And cooperatives have had the ability to actually impact people's lives in very positive ways. And in fact, the cooperative movement began as a reaction to some of the very extreme practices of the early capitalist developments in the Industrial Revolution that led to immense immiseration of workers and horrific working conditions, and it was a kind of response to that, and it has evolved substantially since what we usually recognize as its foundings in the 1820s, or some people say 1840s, but in any case, it's evolved tremendously from that. Cooperatives are businesses now that operate and function much like any other business, and with the exception that they are controlled by the people who use them, as opposed to being controlled by a single entrepreneur or small group of people. They're all over the place, cooperatives. As a matter of fact, we're currently, for the second time in the 21st century, the United Nations has declared the annual year of the cooperative. So it was first declared in 2012, and now I guess it began in 2024. And so the UN actually recognizes the value and the importance of cooperatives. In fact, the International Cooperative Alliance, which is sort of the top level organization that sort of coordinates, it's hard to say coordinates, but oversees cooperatives globally, founded in 1895, was one of three organizations that were recognized by the UN at the founding of the UN as sister organizations. So it has tremendous prominence. There are over 1 billion people who are members of cooperatives and mutual companies around the world. Some of the strongest cooperative movements are here in the United States. The US has something like at least 1 out of every 3 Americans, probably more like 3/5 of all Americans are members of cooperatives of one sort or another. But they don't have a lot of visibility in many ways, and in some ways they have also kind of, to an extent, lost their sense of that agents of social change, even though the way that they operate, the way that they function, represents a change in itself. So that's what makes the cooperative movement most interesting to me. I'm a political theorist. I do work around democratic theory and political economics. And in fact, although I should say in many ways, my intention when I was getting my PhD was to study cooperatives as a kind of vehicle for social change. And so it's very much tied into the fact that cooperatives are democratic institutions, um, democratic businesses, and that's baked into their structure, makes them particularly interesting to me. And also their potential to be more egalitarian, to help to spread wealth more equally because of the fact that because of the fact of the way that they hold capital. Um, and so so that's what makes them really interesting and actually really important and curiously understudied in my experience.
Yeah. So if you could have readers or students take away one really important concept or insight from the chapter, what would that be?
So part of the whole point of this was the need to rethink capital. So capital is money, right? Money is what? It's a medium of exchange. It's a store of value. And it may be the case that money is in fact the root of all evil, but it is not evil in and of itself, right? What makes it evil is the way that it's used, the way that it's controlled, how it gets distributed, and things like that. So in any kind of market economy, capital is going to play a role. It has to, because that's just how we talk about having a store of money. So, but the problem with capitalism as we know it is that it's capital centric, right? Capitalism, as we understand it, has a focus on maximizing itself, right? On maximizing profits, maximizing capital growth. So it's a very one-sided view of what wealth is all about and what it means to have money. Cooperatives reorient the use of capital so that in a cooperative, it's much more about meeting the needs of the members, meeting the needs of the people who are a part of that cooperative, than it is about accumulating more capital, accumulating more money. And so capital is relegated to a supporting role, right? It's just there to help you do what you need to do in order to fulfill the needs or meet the interests of the members. And the other thing about cooperatives is that because cooperatives are organized as democratic institutions on the basis of one member, one vote, it means a democratization of capital. So that's the key takeaway from the chapter.
Yeah.
I also want to say that something that I hope that people also get from this is that it's not a panacea, right? That being democratic institutions means that it depends on the members' expression of their interests. And it is entirely possible that people will conceive of their interests in narrow financial ways. And so cooperatives can be exploitive businesses just like anything else, depending on the members and the orientation of the members. So I think it's the potential for cooperatives, and I talk in the chapter about the way that the cooperative movement, the ICA, the International Cooperative Alliance, has made sustainability, environmental sustainability, ecological, but also social sustainability, community sustainability are key goals of the cooperative movement globally.
Mm.
And they're actually, putting resources where their rhetoric is, which is really great to see that they are, doing work, cooperatives doing work to improve sustainability in really low income communities around the world, and as well as, in the more advanced economies as well. So, they're really sort of, shall we say, putting their money where their mouth is and really doing positive things.
Mm.
And one of the things about the cooperative ethos is the importance of education. And not all cooperatives do a great job with that, but some, the cooperative movement broadly is actually doing a really good job on that.
Great. So it sounds like cooperatives, like capitalism in general, can reflect and will reflect the values of the people who are creating and operating those cooperatives.
Yeah, although the difference here is that capitalism in general is controlled by a small group of people whose primary objective is maximizing their wealth.
Mm.
And and what you have in cooperatives is that control that is much more broadly spread among a much larger group of people, and that it is a truth that people in that situation are going to have diverse interests, diverse kinds of concerns, and so but the orientation of the cooperative is in addressing the interests of those people, most of which is people who are not so focused on just maximizing their wealth, may be more concerned with protecting the environment,
Mm.
with ethical consumption, with ethical production, to help ensure that they're not causing more damage to our society and to the planet.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I appreciate it, and I'm excited for everyone to read your chapter.
Well, thank you so much for hosting.
All right. Take care, Mark.
Yeah, you too.
Bye bye.
Bye.